Napi Lal also wants to know where everyone is from. Thank you for asking that. Yes, let us know. This is a community. Tell us where you're from. Please share your opinions. Nabi Lal says, I'm from Indonesia. Great, welcome. Which part of Indonesia are you from? Tell us what the weather is like at the moment there. And let us know a little bit about what life is like in your country at the moment with the coronavirus. What about the news? How is your country reacting to what's going on in the world at the moment? Please tell me. Biplab says, can you please tell me which state you live in? I'm not sure. Are you talking about Indian states? Or are you talking to somebody else? In South Africa, we don't have states, and it's the same in the UK. We split them into a different kind of name, counties, a bit smaller. Hi, Shailendra, how are you?
Good evening, ma'am. I'm doing well.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm doing well, ma'am. How are you, ma'am?
Great. I'm good. I'm good. Did you have a good last 2 days?
Yeah, ma'am. On my professional front and my personal life, I am good. But as I am seeing these horrific scenes on TV, that is not good, ma'am. I don't think this should be done with the people of Ukraine.
Yeah, it's horrifying, and unfortunately, it's just getting worse because they are targeting more civilians, more people, and Russia hasn't used all their army resources yet, so they have more to come. It's very sad. Unless somebody does something, it's only going to get worse.
And ma'am, the as per ma'am, as I am Indian, ma'am, there are lots of Indian who are stranded in Ukraine, and government is trying to rescue them. But still, ma'am, there are around 2,000 to 3,000 students still in Ukraine, and they are trying to return to country.
Yes, it's terrible. A lot of students from different countries are stranded, and they are sort of more on their own. They don't have family there, and they tend to be a bit younger as well. So we can only hope and pray for the students. Do you think the government will be able to get them out? Will they be able to? Does it look like they can?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, recently the government of India has asked Air Force of India to use army aeroplanes, big aeroplanes that can accommodate more than in a one time 700 to 800 people. So they are sending these big aeroplanes to Poland, Romania, and the neighboring countries to rescue the Indian students who are stranded in Ukraine.
That is good, because unfortunately, I'm not sure if you heard on the news, but some students have been killed. And I think one of the students was from India. It's very sad. So the situation is desperate. They need to get out as soon as they can. Yes, it's very sad. And yes, I share your sort of opinion that even if things are going well in our lives, it's hard to not think about what's going on in Ukraine. So definitely for the next few topics, we're going to link what we're talking about with what's going on with Ukraine. But we can only hope that they get them out.
As this war is raging in Ukraine, now there is a fear of this war between Ukraine and Russia could spiral into a World War III.
Yeah. Do you think it will, Shailendra?
Ma'am, I don't know, ma'am. But ma'am, I can't rely or I can't trust the mind of Putin. He can do anything. Recently, he has ordered his army his nuclear deterrent force to be more vigilant.
Yeah, I don't think it's looking good. I think we are maybe already on the cusp of World War III because there are so many other issues that are overlapping with this issue. I don't think it's only about what people do in Ukraine. I think already Putin will do anything, and there are other dictators who want to take opportunities. Maybe we don't know.
And ma'am, this is not just about sanctions or the involvement of Ukraine into NATO. Ma'am, now, ma'am, Russians fear that these sanctions could destroy their economy, and
Yeah.
to oppose these things, they can do anything, ma'am. There is
Yeah.
no we can't predict. They can do anything to oppose these sanctions.
That's true. Yes, apparently today, the last few days, the trains from Russia to Finland have been full because Russians are trying to escape. They're worried about the sanctions, and yes, it's possible that Russians will try and leave Russia. A lot already have. Um, who knows for the people who are left? Who knows what Putin will do in response? So scary situation.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's on anyone else's mind in the chat. I see Debal says, hello, nice to meet you from Indonesia. So has anyone else been thinking about this issue in Ukraine at the moment? And about different opinions in the chat, and about the situation in Ukraine. Yes, there are Indian students, and unfortunately citizens have been killed as well in Ukraine. It's not just the army, it has been citizens. And students, foreign students as well. So we can only hope and do what we can. But if you have an opinion that you want to share, please do share it in the chat or in the Zoom room if you want to. Hi, Swapna. See you've joined. How are you?
Good evening, ma'am. I'm good. Thank you. How are you?
I'm good. Have you been sort of still following the Ukrainian issue, or have you been trying to take some time away from it the last 2 days?
Yeah, I was just trying to get the update to see nothing goes that bad, like some nuclear weapon if Putin tried to use. So I was just, and yeah, the siren that he actually plays for the country, that is very, like, I couldn't, I didn't feel good whenever I listened to that siren.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Lots of sort
he
of
had
propaganda.
also, right, and he also put bomb on that, what do we say,
Yes, the
from where
cluster
that
bomb.
connection happens, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I think it was a thermobaric bomb.
I think he wanted that the Ukrainians would not have access enough so that they would come to know what their president has in his mind, and he will not be able to communicate with the civilians or the citizens. So he would be able to isolate the citizens, and then he can just occupy.
Yeah, he wants to get rid of all the resistance so he can occupy Ukraine and take over and get rid of their democratically elected government.
Right.
Yeah, it's very sad. So yes, I think he used a thermobaric bomb, I think was the name, which is, it's illegal, decided by the United Nations. So thermo means heat, baric is to do with pressure. So yes, a lot of civilians have already been killed, unfortunately. We're hearing a lot about how well the Ukrainian army has done, but unfortunately, a lot of people have been killed and his methods only seem to be getting worse. So it's a very sad situation. We're going to link it from a different perspective today because today is World Wildlife Day. So it's very unfortunate what's going on with the civilians, and we can only keep campaigning, going to protests like Maliha did. But we're going to think from the perspective of the wildlife today, because they're also being affected. And they are affected by war. So did anyone know that it was World Wildlife Day today? Does anyone know anything about World Wildlife Day, the reason for it? Share your opinions if you do. So we're going to think about that.
I did not know I did not know about the day, but I know why we celebrate this World Wildlife Day.
Yeah, can
Ma'am,
you share that?
ma'am, we celebrate this Wildlife Day to uh, to to celebrate the diversity of our Earth. In Earth,
Yeah.
we humans are not the only species that live. There are lots of species, animal species, birds, and reptiles, and different types of species. So to celebrate this diversity and to save the wildlife, because we know that these wildlife species are dwindling day by day, and
Mm.
some species uh, are uh, are in a threat of being extinct. So to aware the people about the what happening with the wildlife, we celebrate this wildlife day.
Yeah, exactly. And every World Wildlife Day has a different theme, depending on what people think is important to focus on for this year. We're going to think about what the theme for this year is in a moment, but we're just going to think first about the trend that has been happening with wildlife around the world. So a trend, something that has been happening for a period of time, usually a long time. It's a pattern of behavior, something that is consistent, something that is happening in one direction or in one way. So the trend that's been happening at the moment with wildlife, does anyone want to guess? Is it that we're losing wildlife, or that wildlife is sort of being, the population is increasing? What do we think? What is the trend that's been happening for quite a while now? Do we think that it's that there are less animals or more animals? Does anyone want to guess?
Ma'am, definitely the wildlife is dwindling day by day.
Yeah, dwindling is a good word for that. Yeah, reducing, dwindling, decreasing, exactly. So before we think a little bit about World Wildlife Day, let's just think a little bit about the trend that's been happening. So we're not focusing on war right now, we're just thinking about what is the trend with wildlife. So this is a paragraph just to summarize what's been happening with the amount of wildlife, the amount of animals and plants in the world. Would anyone like to read this?
May I?
Yeah, Swapna, please read.
Okay. So, war and wildlife. Earth is losing wildlife at a faster rate than at any time in history. This is according to the new Living Planet report from the World Wildlife Fund. The report says the global wildlife population shrank by 60% between 1970 and 2014. The WWF warned that Earth is losing biodiversity at a rate seen only during mass extinctions. Researchers state that most of the decline in our animal population is because of exploding human consumption. There are more and more humans on this planet. We are eating more, overfishing, cutting down trees for beef production, consuming more, and using more energy and natural resources. This has resulted in a massive loss of habitat for animals.
Beautifully read. Thank you, Swapna. Yes,
Thank you.
so the main reason is the loss of habitat for wildlife. If we think about the habitat that's going to be destroyed during this war in Ukraine, it's going to affect a lot of wildlife, and we're going to think about the specific wildlife that's been affected in a moment. Let's just think about some of the key words in this little summary paragraph about the trends that have been happening in wildlife populations. So we have rate, according to, shrank, biodiversity, extinction, consuming, massive. So some key words you'll hear when you think about the wildlife trends. So can anyone match them to these definitions? We've got A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. What do we think? The rate. Yeah.
The speed something moves or
Rate.
happens or changes.
Yeah, exactly. The state something new. So Earth is losing wildlife at a faster rate, at a faster speed. Excellent. What about according to?
E, ma'am,
As
as stated.
stated.
said or written by.
Yes, exactly. So this is according to the New Living Planet report. So according to E, what do we think for shrank? So
Became
similar
or
word.
made smaller in size. Or
Yeah,
D.
exactly. So the population shrank. Shailendra used a great word. It's dwindling, shrinking, decreasing, declining. These are all synonyms that we can use. If anyone can think of any other good synonyms for some words we come across, please share, because synonyms are always important to learn and interesting. They help expand your language. Okay, what about the next word? Biodiversity.
The variety of life in the world or in a particular habitat or ecosystem.
Yeah, excellent. So it says Earth is losing biodiversity. We're not gaining it. So the amount of life in the world is less because the amount of types of animals are less as certain animals become extinct. Okay, let's think about that next word then, extinction. What do we mean if animals are becoming extinct, if there is extinction? What does that
Then
mean?
when all the animals in a species die forever.
Yeah, exactly. So there's no coming back from extinction unless we manage to find the DNA of animals and bring them back to life. But it's not common, it's not easy to do. So most animals that have been extinct will never exist again.
Ma'am, just like dinosaurs and mammoths, they are now extinct.
Exactly. Mammoths, dinosaurs. Does anyone know any other animals that went extinct, maybe more recently?
Ma'am, there is a danger on orangutans in Indonesia. Pandas, they are highly endangered species, and whales. Some species of whales, they are finding it very difficult to sustain in this world.
Yeah, exactly. So lots of animals are on the edge of extinction, about to become extinct if something isn't done. What about consuming? It's human consumption, our consuming behavior that is driving extinction. What is a definition for consuming?
Buying or using up.
Yeah, exactly. And the last one, massive.
Very big.
Yeah, exactly. That's the simplest definition. Can anyone think of any more? So massive loss of habitat, another synonym. Instead of saying a massive loss of habitat, what could we say? What is a synonym for massive? Another word that means massive.
Ma'am, humongous? No, ma'am.
Yeah, humongous, loss of land,
humongous,
yeah. You could say gigantic loss of land as well. Any kind of word, a colossal loss of land, any kind of word to do with massive works here, because size can be applied to so many different things. So we can also apply it when we talk about the amount of land loss. Colossal, gigantic, enormous loss of habitat, they all work.
Yeah.
Okay, any questions about this before we move on and think about specifically world wildlife today? Okay, so that is the trend that's been happening for a couple of years. Let's think about how World Wildlife Day is being celebrated today and what the theme is for this year. So the theme for this year is recovering species conservation. So basically restoring ecosystems. We'll think of that in a little bit. And we'll think about what that means. Why exactly is that the theme? So there's been different themes for previous years. So Isha, I see you're in the, welcome Isha, welcome Shobha, welcome back. Okay, so we can celebrate World Wildlife every year on the 3rd of March, but there are different themes, like we said. So this theme is recovering key species for ecosystem restoration. Does anyone want to think about what that means? what is recovering key species for ecosystem restoration? What does that theme mean?
Ma'am, recovering means, ma'am, recovering those species which are on the cusp of being extinct, like, ma'am, tigers in India, and lion in Africa, and some other species like panda, orangutan. These are on the cusp of, or on the edge of being extinct.
Exactly. Yeah. So getting back to numbers, good numbers for different areas where they are native to, where they come from. What do we mean by ecosystem restoration?
Ma'am, can I?
Yeah, please do.
Ecosystem means, ma'am, let's say an area which is filled with trees, and fruits for animals, and water, and different type of species. So this can, we can say that this is an ecosystem which is self-sustainable. Okay, and but
Yeah,
when human comes there, uh, when human comes there, they destroy these ecosystem, and they disturb the balance of this ecosystem.
exactly. Yeah. So to restore the ecosystem, put it back to its original state, what it was like before. So to restore something is to take it back to its original state, or the way it was in the first place. So put it back in its original state. So we can restore the ecosystem by giving it back the state it was when it had higher populations of animals. So let's break down these words. So we have recovering, to return to normal state, key species. So the word key is a synonym for important. And ecosystem restoration, rebuilding the habitats, making them stronger, making them better, restoring them, recovering them back to their original state, and making sure that they aren't in a dangerous situation where certain kinds of plant species could die out. If anyone is interested in this idea of ecosystem restoration, there's a really good talk on YouTube by TED Talks about rewilding. I can't remember the author now, but he talks about the importance of taking back animals that actually have disappeared from an area and putting them back, such as wolves. He believes wolves should be put back in England and the UK because they actually change the landscape. They affect the amount of grass in an area. There's a whole knock-on effect when you return one animal to an area. So if you're interested in that, it's a really, really fascinating talk. So I really recommend that. So if you just type in real wilding in TED Talks, he explains how it works to put an ecosystem back to its place. Okay, so that is what the theme is for this year. Let's think a little bit about what an ecosystem is. Would someone like to read?
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, Shalendra, have a read.
An ecosystem is an area where plants, animals, weather, and landscape all work together to create a bubble of life. Some types of ecosystems include forest, grasslands, oases, deserts, and coral reefs. Many ecosystems face a wide range of serious threats, including from climate change, hunting, pollution, and habitat destruction.
Yeah, excellent. So just like you said, it's an area of species working together. So this is just some examples of different kinds of ecosystems that we can think about that are facing destruction. Some of them facing destruction for similar reasons, some of them for different reasons. So these are some examples of endangered species. We're going to look at examples from Ukraine in a moment. But this just gives us a summary of what it means by endangered species. Would anyone else like to read this? Anyone in the mood for reading? I think someone's hand is raised. Labour, would you like to read? Welcome, Labour. Are you there? Your hand is raised.
Around the world are constantly being evaluated to see if they are at risk of extinction. They are then categorized as vulnerable, endangered, or critically endangered. As of December 2021, more than 40,000 different species of animals and plants are endangered and threatened with extinction. There are lots of conservation efforts to try to save many species who have faced threats such as loss of habitat, hunting, and disease. If a species goes extinct, it is likely to cause a knock-on effect, endangering other species linked to it in the ecosystem, for example, if they are linked in a food chain.
Yeah, exactly. So if one species dies out, others could die out just because they might be the food of one species. So this is an endangered species. It looks a little bit like a dolphin, the vaquita. It's the most endangered marine animal in the world. So Shailendra, you mentioned whales. These are also endangered.
Yeah, ma'am. Ma'am, I know this Venkuta. It is they live near, ma'am, in North America, between America and Mexico, Gulf of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you know about them? Because they're so endangered, people don't know about them that much. How did you come across them?
Ma'am, I saw one program on National Geographic on this Venkuta.
Very
Venkuta.
interesting.
And ma'am, the scientists, they catch one Vekuta and they decided to check her uh, some heartbeat or her personal or physical parameters. But she did not live even a 2 or 3 hours and she died.
Oh, that's so sad. Do they know why she died?
Because ma'am, they these mammal are not used to live in a restricted place.
Uh, so was it just that the area, maybe also, do you think the fear from the scientists?
Yeah, ma'am, it could be.
Oh, very sad. So they sound like they're very sort of sensitive animals. They don't survive a lot.
And I
So
think, ma'am, yeah, I think that the mammals who lives in the ocean, where actually the human beings are polluting by throwing plastics mostly. So that is what causing this issue,
that's a
because they
very
are
good point.
not able to, yeah, they are unable to distinguish between the plastic and the food, and that goes to their stomach and then they die.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. Yeah, a lot of plastic. Um, it's been good here in South Africa because in the last 2 years, there's been a very big change from plastic straws to paper straws. Now, if you go anywhere, you can't find paper straws. I mean, you can't find plastic straws. I don't know if anyone else has had that kind of or seen that kind of change in restaurants. Raji, welcome, Raji. How are you?
Hi, ma'am. Good evening. I'm good, ma'am.
Good
Thank you.
evening. Welcome
How
back.
have you been, ma'am?
I'm good. How have you been, Raji?
I'm also good, ma'am. Ma'am,
Yeah.
in the last slide, I read knock-on effect, ma'am. What does
Yeah.
that expression means, ma'am? Knock-on effect.
Secondary effects. So something can have an effect, and then there are effects after the first effect. So a knock-on effect is a secondary effect, another effect that happens after the first effect. So, for example, so that's right, secondary effect. Secondary means the second effect or the second wave of effect. It's like having a chain of effects. So one thing happens and then another because of that. So a species goes extinct. So for example, like what was said about the pollution, like Swapna said, the pollution in the ocean, the pollution is the cause. And the effect is species go extinct. And then the cause of one of those species going extinct, the other effect is that another species goes extinct. So once one thing happens, another thing happens. Does that make sense, Raji?
Yeah, ma'am. And what could be other situation, ma'am, where we can use knock-on effect? I got it. The subsequent effect of something.
Yeah. in lots of different situations when describing, for example, the situations in the news at the moment with Ukraine. What are the knock-on effects of the war in Ukraine? The knock-on effects, the effects because of the war are economic issues, further bad relations with Russia. Those are the knock-on effects of the war in Ukraine. So you can use it in any situations when there are sort of further effects, when it just doesn't stop at one thing.
Ma'am, can we use it? Can we use it for side effects, knock-on effect of some medicine?
No, because the side effect is the one effect. It's the first effect. So then we're thinking of the primary effects, the first thing that happens.
Yes.
So the side effects that you have when you take medication, those are the first thing that happen. You could say it's a knock-on effect if you had sort of, you experience one thing and then another. So maybe you had an allergic reaction to the medication, and then the knock-on effect of that was that it made you feel sick because you had the allergic reaction. So in that case, you could have knock-on effects. Yeah. It just thinks about it. Great. Sarika says, I think one animal eats the other animal is also a reason of diminishing or decreasing of species. It can, but usually there is a balance when it's one species eating another species. It depends on the amount of one species. If you have too much of one species, then they're going to eat all the other species. Yes, like human beings eat a lot of animals. It depends on the amount, but usually there's a balance. But it's good thinking, Sarika. Think about these things and your opinions on these, because these are not simple issues. Kim Taeyan says, I want to learn American accents. There are lots of different techniques that you can use when you're speaking English to put an American accent. Pronounce the R. Americans always go with the R. The British accent doesn't have that. So an English person might say, are you from Taiwan, or are you from America? An American person would say, are you from? So that R sound. There's lots of different techniques. So you can look those up. The big differences. Also, Americans tend to pronounce the vowels a little bit more. So that's just one technique. Okay, so yeah, these are some threats to species and ecosystems, some reasons. Often what's not talked about is war. So we can add that, and we're going to think a little bit in a moment about how war can affect species and ecosystems. Okay, so we're going to think a little bit about what we can do rather than go through these right now. Can anyone think about what we can do to prevent these things? What are things that human beings can do to prevent the causes of species and ecosystems being destroyed? How can we prevent habitat destruction? How can we prevent climate change? How can we prevent overharvesting, pollution, invasive species? And how can we stop war affecting wildlife? Any ideas on what humans can do?
I think we can.
Yeah, Swapna?
Okay, so I think the first thing that we can do is plant trees around us instead of cutting. Grow as many trees as we can. And the second thing is, which is in our hand, is banning plastic.
Yeah, definitely. That would have a huge effect. Yeah, lots of animals do eat plastic. They die very early on. They feed the children plastic. Often baby birds get fed plastic because their parents think it's food. It's quite sad. So that's a great idea, Swapna. Sarika says, become vegetarian. Yeah, definitely. Not easy to do. I have to admit, I'm not a vegetarian. I would like to be, but definitely it's one of the key things. Any other ideas of how we can prevent these threats?
May I?
Yeah, Shailendra.
Ma'am, the first thing that we can do is to decrease our consumption, all type of consumption, not just eating, even what we are wearing, what type of transportation we are using. So we have to decrease our consumption. The next
Mhm.
thing, we should reduce the wastage of food. Around, ma'am, all over the world, humans waste around 40% of what they produce. So we have to
Yeah.
reduce this wastage. And and the third thing is to restore our ecosystem. These are the things that we can do to uh, revert the changes done by climate change.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, so examples of more trees to prevent global warming, to prevent release of carbon dioxide, and restore the ecosystem. Some great ideas. Any other ideas?
And
Does
then
anyone think of, yeah?
we have to use more renewable sources of energy.
Yeah, we can see again with the situation in Ukraine, often energy sources such as gas and oil come from dictatorship countries like Russia. So relying on them is also not a good thing from the perspective of wildlife and because of things like war and dictatorships. Great ideas. Any other ideas? Raji, what do you think?
Yeah, ma'am. With increase in urbanization, what happened? We are focusing more on deforestation instead of afforestation. So first thing, the people they should even focus on planting more trees. Second, the land there should be some guidelines. Some land it should be reserved only for species, animals. Now there should not be encroached by other people. Like with the need of urbanization they are attacking on that land also, so where the animals and the other creatures they will go if we are using their space. And for pollution there should be stringent laws against for the pollution, ma'am, against pollution.
Yeah, definitely. So a lot of pollution, it's all kinds of pollution that human beings produce. We don't just produce pollution in the air, it's water pollution as well, air pollution, there's noise pollution. We think that it just affects us, and light pollution, but those things can also affect animals and wildlife.
And which are the crucial factors, ma'am, for climate change, weather change? So we really need to focus on all kinds of pollution and how can we avoid unnecessary thing, ma'am. Like when there is no need of AC or extra refrigerator or bike, like using vehicles. In some countries, they are banned, like they switch to cycle. And even in developed country, they have proper cycle lanes, so we can
Yeah,
opt for such options.
great ideas.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like we have Japan where people use cycle for traveling.
Exactly.
yeah, so making it easier for people. It's not easy at the moment to do things like always recycling. Here in South Africa, if you want to recycle, you have to pay a private company to collect your recycling. In England, it's free. The government does it. So changing things like that, adding cycle lanes, like you said, Raji and Swapna, to encourage people to cycle. So making it easier. Any other ideas?
Ma'am, making
Like, ma'am,
strict laws.
one idea I want to share with you, ma'am.
Yes,
Like
Isha,
many,
welcome.
like many manufacturing industries, like in leather industry, they uses animals' skins for them for they want to make the product, ma'am. So
Yeah,
it's not it's a cruel. They become a very cruel for towards the animal. Is I think we should stop kind of cruelty. Otherwise, maybe animals will like nowadays bags should be like leather. They love to wear leather dresses. So this kind of industry should be permanently banned.
yeah, that's exactly true. I
And
don't know if
one,
anyone, yeah, Isha?
we can nowadays there are so many different kinds of materials are available. So instead of using leather, we can use animal based not animal based, plant based product also we have now it has invented by someone, I don't know the exact name of that guy. He has invented the leather made up of plant. So it's not compulsory to kill the animals for their, for you cannot you can kill someone for materialistic thing like bag, belt and dresses. So it's just you are a human being, you should be maintain some civilization. Otherwise just imagine that animal cat, they feed their to feed themselves. So even they make this nasa ma'am, shark is the most extinct animals on the earth, in extinct species on the earth. Actually they made the soup of shark. So they, even the government has banned, and they filed some cases on the public restaurant. They started taking the shark from the place, and they ma'am, what we call in the ma'am, they take the shark from the ocean and they made the soup, and it's sale, they can sell it. So because of, you cannot kill other species to stuff your stomach.
True. So yeah, I was also thinking of those fake leather things that they make out of mango. I think I saw there's other materials, so we can use recycled um, or leftover waste to make leather. We don't need to make real leather from animals. You're right; it's very cruel.
Ma'am,
Yes, Sapna?
yeah, I would like to say that if we want the companies who are manufacturing the products using leather, then it's it can be done through us actually. If we people don't buy those things from the shops, then obviously the production of those things will stop
Yeah,
automatically, because since we are buying the things, that's why they are getting manufactured.
that's true. It's all up to the
Ma'am, in
consumer.
India, ma'am, there are
Right.
so many temples they ban the leather product. If you will carry the leather bag and if you will wear the leather belts and all, they will not allow to enter in the temples also, because they indirectly they want to save the animals.
That's
And
a really
India
good
is
thing.
in India, ma'am, there are so many days like you cannot eat non-veg on Monday, Thursday, and sometimes Saturday. So indirectly, it's not a cultural thing. You can say indirectly we are saving the animals.
Yeah, exactly. So if we all make even little changes, those things can make a difference, even if we don't eat meat for one day or 2 days.
Afraid of eating non-veg on like Tuesday. So they are not following their culture. They are following their culture as well as they're saving someone's life, like species. So they we are not kill the birds to stuff our stomach. So it's just a painful for everyone.
Yeah, some great ideas.
Yes,
Can you
ma'am.
say
Um,
some points, ma'am?
Even
yes, Kati, welcome. What do you think? How can we sort of prevent species and ecosystems going extinct? How can we
Yes, ma'am.
prevent or reduce some of the causes?
Besides all these points, the major threat to the society or environment is the immature people.
Mm.
So, if a person is immature, they do all these kind of things like deforestation and also using plastic bags or plastic bottles, and also means creating some kind of wars. Means wars are also created by humans only. They are not created by animals or things. So the
Mhm.
immature people are the major threat to the society. So the people
Mhm.
should have some kind of knowledge. So what they are doing, and is it kind of threat to the society? Uh, so they should develop some kind of knowledge, and
Yeah,
they should
definitely.
also
Mhm.
because they are not only living for themselves, they are also living for their future generation as well. So if they spoil the environment by like this, even their future generations will be suffered, will get suffered. Yeah. So the mind should be clear for everyone. So they should think twice while doing something. For example, if we take China for example, they eat everything with chopsticks. So they are in a situation in they cannot control themselves without eating by chopsticks. They can even eat with some kind of steel spoons or steel forks or whatever it may be, but because of their immature minds and also because of their neglected characters, they're still using the chopsticks, and it is creating a lot of kind of bad thing to the society by because
You mean you
chopsticks
mean you mean
chop-
chopsticks that are
chopsticks
plastic or
are
that?
no, ma'am, chopsticks are made of the wood, no? So for making chopsticks they need to cut the trees. So even we can do means, yeah, lot of thing means we can give a lot of examples like this. So the immature, because of the immature minds, so it's a threat. So the people should think clearly. Yeah.
So maybe more awareness of these issues, making sure governments teach these things in school about the importance of
People
wildlife,
should have
caring
some
for our
kind of
planet, climate
awareness. Yeah,
change.
people should
Okay.
have some kind of awareness. They
Okay.
should
Yeah.
not live for themselves. They should also live for their future generations as well. They should do all
So
these things.
creating that culture to make people care about these things.
As
What does anyone else think? Any other ideas? Okay, well, those are some. Dipali, you want to share your ideas? Okay, let me know
Ma'am?
if you do. Yes, Isha?
Ma'am, one point I just want to include, ma'am. Do you know rhinoceros, ma'am?
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, it's found in Assam, in our eastern area, eastern in India.
Mhm.
Actually, government found that it's very hard to save the rhino in India. So people use their, ma'am. There is one big, very hard kind of something is grow on this, ma'am. What we call on the head, ma'am. Is it?
Sorry, Isha, you cut out there. Anita has some good
Let me
ideas.
ask my other learner. Salendra, what we call जो उसके सर पे होता है?
Horn.
horns.
Horn.
Horn, yeah, the horns.
Oh, ma'am.
Yeah.
Actually, in
Yeah.
Assam, people kill the rhinoceros to sell the horn. They sell horn in crores, ma'am. So government decided to remove all the horns from the rhinoceros so they can save their life. They burned all the horns. So in this way, they can save their life. They have saved their life. Because we
Yeah.
don't.
Some interesting solutions, different ideas. Yes, there's issues in South Africa as well, poaching, taking rhinos and elephants for the horns and the tusks. It's very sad. Anita has some great ideas. Discriminate our use of nature without disturbing the ecosystem, using less and less chemicals, fertilizer. Infrastructure development in a planned way. There's a great ideas. Yeah, chemicals. We know that some chemicals, some fertilizers hurt bees. They are really damaging to bees and they've killed bee populations. So certain chemicals do need to be banned because they do destroy our wildlife. Excellent ideas, Anita.
And ma'am,
Yeah.
in my opinion, another major threat to the society is showing more interest on money and power rather than giving importance to the nature and people. For example, if you consider this war, why this war is going on? Because this Russia wants some kind of supremacy or they kind of control over Ukraine. So the people now want some kind of some money or power. They don't want the affection or they don't want love. Yeah, love towards the people or love towards the nature. Yeah, they're more into the money and power aspects. Yeah, this
That's
is also
very true.
major. This is also major threat to the society.
Yeah, very good point. I agree with you completely. Yeah, that's, I think, the big problem of why Putin was enabled. We're seeing more and more from the UK, the news, the reports coming out, how many MPs were given money by Putin and Russian oligarchs. So he managed to buy American politicians like Trump and UK politicians and other politicians. So they didn't care about the environment, they just cared about money. So it's true.
And
It's definitely, yeah.
ma'am, one more thing, ma'am. Ma'am, there is a less awareness among students related to courses which are inclined towards wildlife management or climate related courses. Everyone wants to do professional courses like engineering, medical,
Yeah.
and other professional courses. So, ma'am, these courses increases the greed among people. Everyone wants to earn more and more, and this increases the consumption. And ma'am,
Yeah.
if there is a greater awareness among students regarding these environmental courses, then people can easily understand what is going uh, on our climate related things.
That's such a good point. Yeah. More people educated in these issues, more people can make a change, can do something, and more people will spend their professional life caring about these issues. Great ideas.
And one
Kartik?
more important
Yeah.
point, ma'am. And one more
Mhm.
important point, ma'am. Nowadays, people want to lead a luxurious life like anything. Means, if you
Yeah.
take one example, like some people wants to have the lion's skin in their houses. So further, they're
Yeah.
spending crores of rupees. Some people wants the elephant horns, or even the nails of the tigers. So because of these kind of what to say sadistic things, also the environment is getting spoiled. So
Yeah.
yeah, they're spending money on these kind of useless things, yeah, rather than
That's
spending
great.
money on some kind of productive things.
Yeah. Some great words. You described that so well, Kartik. You're right. It is sadistic. And they are useless things. Great descriptions. Raji, what do you think?
Yes, ma'am, all the points are covered, but especially, yes, I just want to sum up. Like we need to focus really on three important are that is reduce as Shailendra said, reduce consumption wherever it is necessary,
Yeah.
reuse, and then recycle the things. In that way, we can avoid these threats to the species and ecosystem. And I totally agree with the point of Sapna. Like she said, we are the one who are responsible for this destruction. We are buying all those antique stuff. Antique, no, actually the stuff which is made up out of animals like skin,
Mm.
tusk, or nails. So we can stop this if there is production, but if there is no purchase, automatically they will we will not encourage them to have such things in future.
Yeah, exactly. We have to take responsibility. Um, it's only going to get worse if there's nothing that is done. Some great words, Raji. Kartik, do you want to add something to that?
Also, only one point, ma'am, I would like to add.
Mhm.
Government should also stop doing corruption kind of things, because if the politicians or the police are good people, they if they don't take this kind of bribes and all, how can one cut the trees, and or how can one kill the animals in the forest? So corruption should also stop in the country. So then definitely it would stop all these kind of smuggling activities, especially in the forest. So corruption is also a major threat to the society.
Sorry, you're cutting out, Kartik, but I heard your main point. Corruption, you're right, is definitely because corrupt people can buy other corrupt people and convince them to do things that are immoral,
Am I
that are not
audible?
moral, not right. Just like this example of the Russians buying other governments. You see politicians who are willing to do immoral things for money. Shailendra, do you want to add something?
Yeah, ma'am. Ma'am, recently, I think on Saturday, I read in newspaper three types of economy, ma'am. First is
Mhm.
linear economy, the in which we are only focused on consumption, and the second one is recycling economy, where we reuse the expired product, and ma'am, third one that is now in Fed, that is circular economy. Ma'am, have you heard about
Yeah.
this circular economy?
Yes. I think it was a female economist who came up with this idea.
Yeah, ma'am. So, ma'am, this in this circular economy, we are using the raw material again and again. So there is no loss or no wastage.
Yeah, exactly. That's definitely what we need to head towards. And it starts by awareness, like Kartik said, caring about these issues. That's where the start is. You all came up with some really great ideas. I think a lot of you really care about these issues, which is great to hear. Does anyone else have some final points they want to share about this before we think about the issue with Ukraine and wildlife?
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah, ma'am.
Swapna, yeah, I think you were, Vaishnavi,
Yeah.
I'll come back to you.
Yes, I'm Vaishnavi. Can I speak, ma'am?
Yes, Vaishnavi, what do you want to say?
Yes, ma'am. My topic is Save to the Tree. Ma'am, saving trees and around you. Every town and city has laws dis- defining which tree species and need to a tree. And ma'am, otherwise is tree produces oxygen that is life in line of all living beings. In the hot summer, we usually plant trips in the hilly areas. And ma'am, the third one is skip to save the tree rather than just letting it get cut down. Get
Yeah,
with other people who care about saving trees in your area and make it clear that you object to cutting down healthy trees. Please save the tree because even tree is law against cutting down the tree in enough people think trees are important and need to be protected and you might be able to career change. Uh,
that's
yes, ma'am.
those
So,
are excellent points, Vaishnavi.
yes, ma'am, because the tree is most important in our life. Startup petition or change up.
Yeah, such great points. It takes a while for a tree to grow. So just like you said, we don't want to cut down the trees that are already big. Even if we plant some, it's going to take a while to grow. So plant trees and don't let trees be cut down. Some great points, Vaishnavi. Thank you for sharing that. Somebody else has their hand raised. Kartik, you had your hand raised. And I'll come back to you, Swapna.
Every government should bring a rule that
Thank you. Never.
every citizen of every country should plant at least 100 trees in their life.
Yeah.
If they do so, they will definitely realize the importance of plants. So yeah, this
Yeah,
government should.
just yeah, getting people to interact with plants and planting it themselves. You're right, that will raise awareness. Swapna, what did you want to say?
Yeah, I wanted to say that like earlier, the pollution was already increasing the temperature and also affecting the global warming. And now this war has started, it will have major impact again. And that is actually uh, like directly proportionate to the seawater increasing. And that has impact on the wildlife who are dependent and who lives on the ice like place, like we have penguins and polar bear and other animals who stay in those kind of places, so they will be extinct if the temperature rises more due to the war.
Yeah, it's very true. We have to do something now. Otherwise, those animals are, I mean, they're already suffering. Polar bears are struggling to eat things. There's lots of images that people have caught of polar bears starving because temperatures are rising.